Good evening, everyone. I'm calling our October 25th 8-Town Regional School District Planning Board meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. Roll call attendance. Charlie, you on?
I'm on. Present.
Okay. And I'm on for Alford from Egremont. George? George, you on? I thought I saw him. George, you
He's
there?
doing
George is on. He's muted.
Okay, George, can you just unmute and say yes? We'll come back to him. Danelle?
Yes.
Is Tom Burkle on? No. Deb Phillips,
Yes.
Peter Taylor,
Yes.
Steve Bannon,
Yes.
John Silbert,
Yes.
Don Colburn,
Yes.
Laura Rodriguez.
I haven't seen Laura yet.
Okay, we'll come back to her. She's planning to be on. Jane Burke,
Yes.
Tara White,
Yes.
Susan Smith,
Yes.
Bonnie Silvers,
Yes.
Nadine Halver,
Yes.
Colin Smith,
Laura-
Patrick White.
He's in the attendees.
Okay, can you?
I got him. Yep.
Sean Steven. Michael,
Yes, by the way.
oh, Patrick's there. Is Michael here? Okay. Marie Ryan,
Yes.
Molly Thomas. Molly. Andy Potter.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm gonna go back. George McGurn.
Yes.
Thank you. Laura.
Hello.
Hi. Colin Smith still not on. Sean Stevens still not on.
No, Lucy, Sean's on under, I'm listed twice. Sean's on under me.
That's
Okay.
I was wondering what was going on there.
Oh, hi,
I never-
hi, Sean.
Yeah, I didn't get my link, so I guess I'm Peter now.
Okay, great. Michael, not on, Molly, not on, and Tom Burkle, not on, right? Okay, well, we have a quorum, thank you. First, I need to let everyone know that Jake unfortunately can't join us tonight. He's not feeling well. So we're going to go forward without him. I ask everyone to be on perfect behavior. We don't have his calming influence leading the charge here, so you need to be patient with me. I might not have all the i's dotted and t's crossed. I had a busy day, but I'll do my best. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We only have the August 23 minutes ready for you. Those were circulated before the last meeting, so you all should have read those by now. We just didn't get to them at the last meeting. So I'll call for a motion to approve the 8/23, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion?
Yeah, there's some corrections. Those
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Okay. So on page 2,
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down after superintendent, it has a period.
Yep.
And that's 2 spots in that one. And then on page 3, it's in 2 spots in the 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down
Yeah.
as well. I also, I think that there's a word missing in the next line in that 4th paragraph. It says Superintendent Dillon stated the motion passed. Should it have that the motion passed with this? Should it have the word that there?
We can insert that.
I mean, it just sounded funny. Maybe it was just when I was reading it the first time.
That's okay.
And on page 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, 3rd line, there needs to be a space between boards and RSDPB work.
Yeah,
And I think this is supposed to say regionalization, so 2 paragraphs down from that, the line that starts with, however, the team's charge was to focus on the potential regional of that's supposed to be regionalization.
okay.
And then the last paragraph, there's 2 dots before Mr. Silbert's name, so it says Mr. ... Silbert.
Okay.
And I
That
think
is
that's
my name.
Where is that? Where's that?
That's the last paragraph on page 5. Operations Subcommittee.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna need to crown you Roger Kavanaugh, Eagle Eyes, Tara. You've now taken over. You can get the prize. All right, with those very good
Lucy, I have a
corrections.
point of order for the agenda, which, before we get started, which is, I'd like to make a motion.
We've got a motion on the table, Jane.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot we haven't voted on the minutes. My
Yeah, we
apologies.
haven't voted on the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so any further discussion of the minutes? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna take a vote to approve the minutes as corrected. Chuck,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Danelle,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Peter, Taylor,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Nadine,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Marie,
Yes.
Andy,
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Okay, so you have a point of order, Jane?
Yes, I'm concerned that there's 5 minutes only allotted to the transition that we're going through tonight, that many of us are leaving and new members are coming in. And I think that we're trying to get a lot done in this meeting. And I would feel like if we don't have enough time to fully process that, we're missing an important discussion. So that's just, I don't know whether anybody else feels that way. I just want to bring it up.
Well, we're not going to be taking 10 minutes for item 3 because that was all Jake. We'll probably take about 3 minutes for that. So we'll have more than 5 minutes for the transition. We'll probably have 10 or 15.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so on item 3, I don't have anything prepared, but this is what I can tell you. We're in good shape through the end of the year. We've got enough funds to get us through the end of the year as a result of the leftover town funds we had from the prior fiscal year, a lot of generous support from Burke 12, and also the Bar Foundation $50,000 grant for the Ed Visioning. So we're in good shape through the end of the year. We're hoping that our community impact grant application is successful, and we'll get some additional funds there. And we're continuing to explore other possible funding sources for 2023. We did get, as you know, a positive vote out of the town of Sheffield to contribute up to $15,000 if need be. The town of Alford held a special town meeting. Was that last week, Charlie? And they voted to at special town meeting, the voters voted to approve up to $15,000 as well, and that was a unanimous vote. So that's good. We're off to a good start there.
West Stockbridge voted to as well.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't even know that. That's wonderful. So we've got some momentum there. That's great news. And it looks like we're going to have funds into 2023 if we need them from the towns. Advocacy update. We had a meeting scheduled for this week, tentative, with Smitty Pignatelli to talk more about state funding sources. That's going to have to be rescheduled because Jake is out, as I said, but hoping that will happen next week. Anything more you want to say about that, Peter Dillon? On the
No, I think that's good. I think Smitty's role will be really important with Adam's transition out in the new election. So I'm looking forward to connecting with him. Lucy, it maybe just went down, but I saw Patrick had his hand up. I don't know if he's still.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick. I don't even see you on here, but if you have your hand up, I'm recognizing you.
Look, the request of the towns was on hold. Do you want us to put that on the agenda in Stockbridge?
What we did was we wrote a letter that said to each of the towns, if you'd like to put it on hold, that's fine with us. Because we won't know until the end of the year how much money, if any, we're actually going to need from each of the towns. But some of the towns didn't want to put it on hold because they already had scheduled a special town meeting. Alford was in that category, as was West Stockbridge, I believe. So that's why they went forward with those votes.
Okay. All right then.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so I'm going to move to the subcommittee updates. And I've given everyone a heads up that we don't have Jake to tee this up. So I'm going to start with Deb, educational quality.
Thank you. We had a good meeting, and we briefly discussed the challenge of getting teachers and staff involved in the different visioning steering committees. Discussed a suggestion to slow down the process, but as a majority agreed that we were going to continue to try to push forward towards the Maytown meetings. But based on that, we felt that the pre-K through 8 we could put on hold since there really weren't any changes happening there, and had a conversation about trying to gather those faculty and staff together somehow informally, so they felt that they were part of the process but didn't feel the pressure to do something that really was not necessary at this time, and didn't really come to any conclusions about how we intend to do that. We met the consultants for the grade 9 through 12 work. I was very impressed with them. I think everyone was. They're very committed to working with the schools on whatever terms that takes to gather input beyond what the project management team has already gotten. And the plan is to hold 1 or 2 community convenings, tentatively early December and early January, but some of that will be confirmed after they meet with the superintendents in both school districts, which I believe is scheduled for this Friday. So we should hear more about timeframes and plans after that happens. We heard from Laura Rodriguez about the meeting that the youth leaders of the Southern Berkshire Community Health Coalition pulled together to hear from high school students about their educational visions and concerns. And Laura, are you prepared to tell us a little bit about that so I don't have to be the one to do it? And then I'll pick up and talk about CVTE afterwards, but thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to give everybody just an abridged version of a presentation I made in both the education subcommittee and the communication subcommittee meetings last week. Basically, we hosted a convening. The Southern Berkshire Community Health Coalition hosted a youth-led forum specifically about the merger at the Railroad Street Youth Project Drop-In Center in Great Barrington. We had 13 attendees. 11 were from Monument Mountain and 2 were from Mount Everett. That sort of informed how we'll perform outreach for the subsequent forums that young people have expressed interest in doing. We're going to do 2 more before January. But I'll just jump right into what people talked about. The prompts were essentially, what excites you about the merger and what are you afraid of losing? So what excites you about the merger could lead to a more progressive culture overall, a larger staff to hold all types of learners. New classes would be a wonderful possibility, including more environmental studies, a zero tolerance policy for discrimination, and the idea of folding anti-racism into the DNA of the curriculum itself. American Sign Language classes, bilingual guidance counselors, and Spanish-speaking support in general. A new school means a new community. Young people can define a new culture. It's a great opportunity just to start over, start fresh, and have lots of youth participation in this process. And then more support for Mount Everett students looking at inclusion currently, possibly a Latin studies program. We know that that's one of the largest growing populations in our community, so that would be a nice acknowledgement of that. Cultural competency around race, gender, class, LGBTQ, and a curriculum that reflects that, and also the people power of a larger student body. Jumping into what folks are afraid of losing. Concerns around integrating school cultures. A student may not be interested in the cultural shift, which could lead to safety issues for queer and questioning students. What will happen to SBRSD staff if they don't want to merge into a new district? Continuity for clubs and student leaders, but people also mentioned that it could be a good thing to shake that up. Inclusion efforts that are currently happening at Monument Mountain could slide back. Feels like similar excuses associated with COVID protocol could be used there. And then I'll just jump into general notes, just sort of findings from this first forum. The first round of, there was a lot of concern expressed at a few points that the first round of students would be like the guinea pigs. There was a lot of concern around those first few transition years, which was really interesting to think about because that's not something that I had thought about at all. More forums are welcome and needed. Young people prefer to do those in person. A couple of people suggested that they happen during school hours, but the time slot that we allotted, which was at 5 o'clock and accommodates for extracurriculars, also works. There was also a suggestion to host in Sheffield next time. And just in general to create equitable outreach and transportation access for all students, regardless of the venue. And then we did a quick mock vote at the end. Of the 13 participants, we had 10 yes votes, 1 no vote, and 1 unsure, needs more information, which is what we've been hearing a lot of. So that's just my quick summary of that forum. And I'm really excited to, even though I will not be on the board soon, I'm excited to be doing this work and continuing with these forums. This feels like a good lane for me to be in. So looking forward to sharing more with everyone.
Thanks, Laura. I'm really excited about the student input and about the enthusiastic participation. I'm really looking forward to hearing from more students.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that that will inform in many ways. So I feel like we're moving forward. The other, again, getting staff and faculty to commit to steering committee schedules has been a challenge. And I think we're looking for creative ways to work around that and still make sure all voices are heard. So as I said, with the 9 through 12, after the consultants come and meet with Peter and Beth, we'll have a better sense of how that process will move forward leading up to the community convening, which will be open to everyone. On the CVTE side of things, we made a decision to go ahead, even though we don't have a steering committee in place, to go ahead and bring in all of the community people whose input we're looking for on the variety of different career pathways, ranging from Chapter 74 through pathways and innovative pathways and internships and mentorships and everything else, to begin to get information from professionals in the community, from contractors and business owners and healthcare people and all of those sectors that we're looking to prepare students for work in, to begin to hear from them about what they see as the need and the best ways they see to meet it, so that we have that information as we move forward planning any of the CVTE programming. So I feel like we're paring down our approach so that we can make it as efficient and as effective as possible, and really looking to work within the constraints of the people's whose voices we need to hear. So I think we're well on our way, and we'll keep you posted as we begin to create community convenings and places where people can gather information and be heard. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, or anyone else who's on the committee.
Peter has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing quickly. The consultants are meeting with Beth and I, but they're also meeting with the principals. They're meeting with like 6 teachers and staff, and I think 6 students in each building. So it's happening in Southern Berkshire on Friday and morning, and Berkshire Hills Friday afternoon. So it's much more than just Beth and I.
Excellent, Peter. Thank you. I hadn't realized that we had gotten that far, so that's really exciting.
Yeah.
George? George, your hand is up.
He's muted
He's not muted.
on this. Oh, now he is.
Okay, first of all, I'm having consistent problems with everyone tonight because they're freezing and going in and out. So I'm not sure I'm getting all the substance. So I just want to state that. But secondly, 13 students. I mean, to try to draw any conclusions from that at all strikes me as rather odd, to say the least.
We're not drawing any conclusions yet. This is just the beginning.
Well, let's say that it's a very slow beginning. I mean, maybe that's the pause.
I guess and maybe you want to respond to that, Laura.
Anybody who wants to hold a youth forum is welcome to. Railroad Street is holding 2 more between now and January, and providing as much outreach as we possibly can. I'm sure the education subcommittee is open to other ideas for forums.
Absolutely.
We got a very positive response to this one, and we're working with the momentum that young people are expressing around this particular issue.
So I think that one of the things that I always experience is that when you start, you have to start somewhere, figure out what worked and what didn't work, what were the barriers, and then you move on to increase the number. Sometimes you're lucky, you hit it right. You get a whole bunch of people at your first meeting, but very often when you have this, you have to figure out why people weren't there. And I think that the decision to look at where it was held, to look at transportation and look at the times are the response to 13 was a start. And now we've learned something and can move forward. So I'm optimistic, George, that the numbers will increase significantly, and that nobody was planning on drawing conclusions from 13 opinions. But thanks for your concern. Bonnie.
Yeah, I would just like to second what George has said, because Deb, a couple of minutes ago, you said how pleased you were about the enthusiasm.
Mhm.
And I was very impressed with what Laura told us about how intelligently these young people are approaching the whole issue of transition and really being sensitive to that. But I do say again and again that when you've had 2 Mount Everett students, and I am in no way saying that there has not been outreach, but we have to be able to examine why that is happening. Is it a negative issue or is it a logistics issue? So we have to be sensitive to the fact that what we do gets picked up by media. People draw conclusions when they may not have all the necessary information. And I want us to be really cautious as we look to, and I know Laura's committed to this, to expand our database of young people, because this is critical. And it's, you know, it's critical not only for our young people, but I think, again, I'll hark back to the letter that everybody received from our school district. We're concerned that we do what we can in terms of gaining the greater engagement. And again, I know that there has been outreach again and again. I think one of the things that'll be interesting to see is if the session that we spoke about at education of bringing together teams from both schools in a very comfortable forum gives us greater insight so that we can move this ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna move to the next item on the agenda, so we have some shot at getting through the agenda tonight. These are subcommittee updates. I appreciate the work, Laura, you did. And please continue on as you have. I appreciate the enthusiasm you're bringing to the work. And let's go to community outreach. We heard that same youth forum feedback at our community outreach meetings, so we don't need to repeat that. The video that's been prepared is on the cusp of release, so that should happen soon. We've also put together a very nice poster that we can use at community forums, presentations before boards, etc. That got done since the last full board meeting, so we're excited about that. Finance Subcommittee, Nadine.
The Finance Subcommittee met on October 12th. We focused on answering the questions that had come out of the previous meeting where we began looking at assessment methodologies. The questions revolved around what the reasons were for the differences in per pupil cost in each district, what sources of revenue were being used to determine the amount to be assessed. We also reviewed 4 different assessment methodologies. Berkshire Hills formula, Southern Berkshire's formula, a foundation enrollment, as well as a hold harmless methodology. I'm not going to go into the details because it's a lot. But we'll talk about that at a future date, I'm sure. We discussed capital assessments related to existing debt, new high school project, and future capital improvements that'll need to be ongoing. And we touched briefly on salary scales, which we need to discuss further, which will be on our next agenda, along with continued discussions on operating assessments and OPEB liability.
And for people who don't know what OPEB is, other post-employment benefits, I think that's what the acronym stands for.
That's right.
And that's primarily the benefits that need to be paid out by the school districts to those who have retired. Is that right, Peter, Dylan, and Beth? Did I get that right?
You sure did.
Okay.
Yeah, but important, it's not for everybody. The teachers thing is largely self-funded.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay. Anything more on finance subcommittee? If not, we'll move to operations. John?
So we are still waiting for the transportation study, and we'll meet again when that comes through. I think we're expecting it in the next week or two. And we asked for a third scenario for the busing before we bring it before the full board. So as soon as we get that in, we'll call another meeting. The issue was that when we got the first study, our contractor was going to Italy for 6 weeks and was not going to be able to get this new piece together for us until he got back.
Okay, so hoping to get that end of the month, beginning of next month. Project management, we approved doing the OPEB study. I think that money actually is coming in from Burke 12, if my memory is right. It's not coming out of RSDPB funds, but Burke 12. Project Management Subcommittee approved that. We approved a facilitator for the facilitated meeting that was the subject of Laura's motion last time. So we have someone lined up for that. That meeting will either happen on November 9th or November 16th. Need to see what everybody's availability is on November 9th. That might be the better day to have that discussion of the two, but that's the plan. And I believe he's available on either of those two dates. Peter Taylor, anything else we talked about in project management that I'm not remembering?
No, just that the facilitator actually is donating his time pro bono, given his connection to education and the Berkshires, which is helpful for our budget, but also just shows the commitment he has to this project.
Right, good point. Thanks for adding that. Okay, so we're only 5 minutes behind. We're going to turn to the draft regional school district agreement. And I actually thought that our council was going to be on tonight. Christine, do you have his email address? Do you know if you sent him the link for this meeting?
Let me check. What is his name again?
Russell Dupre.
Dupre? Dupre?
Yeah.
Let me check.
Dupere.
Okay, one moment. Do you want to go on to the next one while I work on this? I'm showing that he did get a link. I can give him a call. If I can
Yeah, that'd
find-
be great. We'll
Sure.
get started on this, but I would love to have him on to talk through the the new transition language that was added to this draft since the last draft that was distributed to the full planning board.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, so our idea for this meeting was to keep working through the school committee composition provisions and see if we can maybe take temperature checks on some of these provisions so we can sort of move past them, green light them. It's not a binding vote. Obviously, there's not going to be a binding vote on a new agreement until we've got all the provisions sort of worked through. But I do think it would be worthwhile when we get to a provision where there seems to be a consensus, if we took a temperature check on the various options and came to agreement, or at least a consensus on the ones that we're able to agree on. And at the last meeting, we spent some time talking about school committee membership options. And if you'll turn to worksheet 2, which lays out the different possibilities, there seemed to be a lot of support. We didn't take a vote, but there seemed to be a lot of support around option 3A, which, just as a reminder to everyone, is district-wide voting with residency requirements. The district-wide elections are to be held at biennial state elections, as we do now. 11 school committee members, each with 1 vote, 1 from Alford, 1 from Egremont, 3 from Great Barrington, 1 from Monterey, 1 from New Marlborough, 2 from Sheffield, 1 from Stockbridge, and 1 from West Stockbridge. And I think maybe 5 or 6 people weighed in with positive feelings on that option. And I want, now that people have had a little bit more time to think about it, I want to continue that discussion and then see if we've got consensus on 3A. Peter Dillon?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of 3A, but I'm participating in an advisory role. One thing I recommend the group consider is, and this came up a little bit in the last meeting, Patrick brought it up, is the as proposed numbers disadvantaging the communities that have more students in them. So might you consider going from 11 to 13 and adding an additional seat in both Stockbridge and perhaps Great Barrington? As I reflected on this more, what's interesting is, while each town gets 1 person, if the 3 towns roughly have 1,200 students and the 5 southern towns have 600 or 700 students, we're creating a imbalance potentially with 11 seats as proposed.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the board consider a variation on 3A with 11 committee members rather than 11.
13 rather than 11.
13.
I'm sorry, 13 rather than 11, and an extra committee member from Great Barrington and Stockbridge.
Yes,
Is that right?
or some variation on that. I'm mostly sort of proposing that to provoke additional discussion.
Okay, Deb?
The conversation that I remembered was very similar to what Peter was talking about, but talked about possibly having a couple of at-large members as opposed to necessarily distributing them to any particular town. So I don't know which is actually the better way to do it, but that would be another way to broaden the possibilities.
Okay. And what would you suggest in terms of committee number? For 13 with 2
Yeah, 13.
out,
I came to
13
the same
with
number.
2 at large.
with two at large as another possibility.
Okay. 13 with 2 at large. Okay, Andy?
I have to say, I'll agree with Deb. I like the idea of 13 with, I like some at-large membership.
Okay, Don Coburn?
A few points. One, let's keep in mind what was emphasized at our last meeting, which is that the members of the board come with an attitude not of representing a town, but of all being indebted to helping the students, all the students of the school. Secondly, there's actually no practical system of trying to do a complete balancing without having a board that has far too many members for efficient discussion. So I think that limiting the membership to 11 is likely to improve the debate and consideration of issues on the new board. I don't think that Great Barrington or Stockbridge gain anything of great significance by just adding one, and I think the adding of one to each gives you a board with a number that a lot of people are uncomfortable with, 13, but nonetheless is bigger than necessary and would interfere with efficient management. So I would still be inclined to support 3A. Thank you.
Okay. Andy, your hand is still up. Do you want to go again?
Well, I mean, I understand the point about management. Having sat on a 10-person board, I certainly never saw any, excuse me, I never saw any real issues around, managing the opinion. And so, I mean, I would be fairly comfortable with either 11 or 13. I'm not a superstitious person, so 13 doesn't scare me. But I mean, I like as I say, whether it's 11 or 13, I do like the idea of at-large representation, because that throws a piece in that, well, it certainly makes a district-wide election more relevant because it's an at-large position. It comes back to that whole idea of being there for the district, as opposed to sort of the more parochial interests. And this time I'll take my hand down.
Thanks, Sandy. Patrick?
Look, I kind of like to make 2 points. One, some of us are trying to catch up with Great Barrington's lead in affordable housing. And I think that the communities who are investing in affordable housing can expect to have more children in the district going forward. And I have no idea what the other communities' investments are. I just don't track it. So I'm not at all disparaging. I'm just simply suggesting that I believe Great Barrington, Steve, you guys outweigh us like 8-1 wise, right? And I think that if you're gonna make it a 13-person board, I would have no problem with both seats going to Great Barrington, because they're taking the lead not only on policies that allow families to kind of live in the region, at least for our 3 towns, but also for affordable housing, where we're trying to catch up, but we're nowhere near as there yet as you guys are.
Thanks. So, I see Jane's hand is up. I was gonna see if we could do a straw poll. Jane?
I would just like to introduce the idea that we think of this more as a Senate than a House of Representatives. because I'm concerned with the smaller municipalities pretty much losing their vote if it's weighted more heavily in the higher population areas. Thank you.
I have to say, I just have to say this, but the Senate concept seems somewhat toxic in our current environment, but I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, there's a lot of history, interesting history about why the Senate was introduced into our system at all. And I think it was not necessarily to promote democratic principles. All right. Let's, I don't want to cut off the discussion, but I'd like to get sort of a sense of where everyone is sitting on this right now. And then we can have some more discussion, but this is just a temperature check. And I want everyone to identify their first and second choice. And I'm going to go around the planning board room. So give me your first choice and your second choice out of the following three possibilities. And if somebody wants to vote on a fourth possibility, I'll entertain that. But for now, we're going to be voting on 3A as proposed on this worksheet, which is 11 committee members, each with a vote, 3 from Great Barrington, 2 from Sheffield. So the original 3A. Option 2 is what Peter Dillon suggested, which is 13.
I want 3A, right, Karen?
Charlie, hold your vote in advance for a minute. 3A prime is what Peter Dillon suggested, which is 13, still district-wide voting, residency requirements, 13 on the board with an extra from Stockbridge and Great Barrington. And then 3A double prime is what I think Andy suggested, and maybe somebody else, which is 13 with 2 of those 13 at large, and otherwise the makeup as shown on page 25 for 3A. So does everyone have those 3 options in their head? 3A, 3A prime, 3A double prime. So 3A is 11, 3A prime is 13 with the extra 2, 1 from Stockbridge, 1 from Great Barrington, and 3A double prime is 13 with the 2 extra being at large. All right, I'm going to go around the room. And everyone needs to choose 2. You can't just choose 1. So Charlie, what's your first choice?
3A, as I mentioned before, and it's tough. 3B.
We don't have a 3B. We have a 3A prime and a 3A
3A
double
prime,
prime.
yes, excuse me.
3A prime, so an extra from Stockbridge and an extra from Great Barrington.
That's my second choice.
It's your second choice? Okay. All right. Nadine. Nadine.
I'm coming. I wasn't expecting Sheffield to get called so quick. I'm in favor of 3A and 3A double prime.
Which is your first choice?
3A.
Okay.
And 3A double prime would be my second choice.
Okay, 3A double prime is with the 2 additional being at large. Okay, Don Coburn.
3A is my first choice and 3A prime my second choice.
Okay, Andy.
You can serve me up a dish of double prime and a side of 3A.
Love it. Okay, Deb.
I haven't had dinner yet. What do you know?
Deb.
I I'm echoing Andy, 3A double prime and then 3A.
Okay. Danelle,
I think I like 3A double prime first and then 3A.
okay.
And the double prime was the extra members were at large, right?
Correct, correct. Laura,
3A double prime. And then 3A.
okay. Bonnie,
3A.
and what's your number 2?
I can't do it this way. I'm sorry. To just get all of this now and make such important decisions for our community. No, 3A is all I could say.
Okay, we're just taking temperature here. Susan Smith. Susan? Marie?
Sorry, Lori, or,
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
sorry, Marie. 3A double prime and then 3A.
Okay, Marie.
I'm really thinking the 3A prime and then the 3A double prime.
Okay. Tara.
I was struggling. I was gonna do 3A and then 3A double prime, but I really think I like the at-large, so I'm gonna go with 3A double prime and then 3A.
Okay. Sean.
3A prime and 3A double prime.
Tom Burkle.
I would say 3A is fine by me. Double prime is backup.
Okay. John.
3A and 3A double prime. And coleslaw on this.
Okay. Peter Taylor.
Double prime and then 3A.
Okay, I know I've missed some people. Who have I missed?
Jane,
Oh, sorry, Jane.
3A and 3A double prime.
Lucy, you missed me, Steve.
Oh. Just the school committee chairs.
I would go with 3A prime and 3A double prime in that order.
I also will vote for 3A prime and 3A double prime.
Who's that?
Patrick White.
Oh. Give me it again, Patrick.
3A double
I can't hear.
3A prime and
Yep.
double prime.
Okay.
Lucy, you can add me as a double prime for my second choice.
Okay. Double prime. Okay. All right. Who else have I missed? Anybody?
You've got 17 so far.
All right. So I'm gonna add up how many number ones each one got. So 3A, plain vanilla 3A, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 number ones.
No, that's not right. I got it's 10 number ones.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I have 10.
Okay, let's just go with my count and then we can confirm it.
7.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 number twos. Okay, 3A prime got 1, 2, 4 number ones. And 1, 2, 2 number twos. And then 3A double prime got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 number ones. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 number twos. So if my count is right, and we'll go back to 3A, regular 3A, and confirm that I'm right and Don's wrong, or if Don's right, we'll go back. But according to my count, there were 16 who voted either number 1 or 2 for 3A double prime. There were 14 who voted either 1 or 2 for 3A. And there were 6 who voted either 1 or 2 for 3A prime. So the people who voted number 1 for 3A, just 11, the original one, please raise your hand so we can confirm that it was the number. So
Nope.
let me just
Wait,
check.
wait.
Just Bonnie, John,
Or 3A for,
Jane.
okay.
Just hold on. Nadine,
Charlie,
Charlie, Don. Don, you were 3A, right?
Yeah.
Tom Burkle. Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what I had.
Yep,
That's
7.
not correct.
It's 7.
Charlie 1, Nadine was a 1, I was a 1, that's 3. Bernie was a 1, that's 4.
Bonnie.
Sean was a 1.
No, Sean, his number 1 was 3A prime.
I apologize.
Okay.
Tom Burkle was a 1.
Yep.
John was a 1.
Yep.
Burke was a 1. Steve
Yep.
was a 1, and Pat
No,
was a 1.
Steve's number 1 was 3A prime.
Well, I'm going to stop trying to record anything.
Okay.
I give up.
All right. So, I mean, 3A and 3A double prime are close in terms of overall votes, totals between 1 and 2. Both got 7 as the number 1, and 3A got 7 as the number 2, and 3A double prime got 9 as the number 2. So I think we're between those two, right? I think those are the two that sort of emerged as the most popular. And I think the temperature check was worthwhile. We don't have to make a decision tonight, but I'm glad that we got everybody's views out on the table and we have a sense of where we're going.
I'd like to put a question, if I might.
Okay,
Isn't there going to be a problem with trying to elect people at large? Right now, people think of themselves as, I'm going to run for my town. I'm wondering whether anybody will run for at-large seats and whether we'll end up stuck with a smaller board. And I apologize for interrupting.
Lucy, can I just piggyback on that?
Sure.
I think it's a new concept and I agree with Don. My years on the school committees, everyone is at large. They may run from, because they live in Great Barrington, but they don't represent only Great Barrington. They represent the students in all three towns. And I'm not sure there's going to be an understanding what at large means. That's my only concern.
It is a common concept in many states. Less common, I understand, in the Commonwealth.
I still have my hand up.
Okay. Just looking at everyone who's got their hand up. Okay, Bonnie, go ahead.
I want to piggyback on what both Steve and Don said. You know, one of the things what we try like anything to do is to get parents to run for school committee and to get educators. And this is, I'm sorry, let me get this shut off. I am very concerned that this is turning into a real political type of position. And, you know, there's a different nature to a person who is willing to go and run for select board. But I think it's hard enough now to get anybody to run for school committee. I think we have to be very careful that we're not setting this up as something that's going to turn away the people we most want to have on our school committees. That's my concern.
Okay. Jane, then Andy, then Laura.
I'm gonna put my hand down. I don't have anything to say.
Okay, Andy?
Well, I was just going to say, as someone who has served 6 years on a school committee and now, what is it, about 9 months, 7 months, 8 months, somewhere in there, on a select board, I think there's room for, I mean, I think the goal of what we want to see, who we want to engage with the political process, both in terms of education and in terms of governing our communities. I don't see that as various subsets. It's like we should be encouraging a broader sense. I've served as a parent, and then when my kid graduated, I was on for another 2 years after that. So, I mean, I don't see the distinction. I just don't.
Thank you. Laura?
I do agree with Bonnie that, you know, in the best of circumstances, the best candidates for school committee are educators and parents. That's where you get kind of really good representation. But I do think that we've had an issue, at least in Southern Berkshire, getting those slots actually filled. And this at-large concept is something that potentially remedies that. You end up with community members that are just genuinely interested in engaging with this work, which is by far the most important criteria for that position.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, do you have more, or you just have an artifact hand?
No, it's not an artifact now. It was an artifact for a while, but after that, it isn't. My sense of it is that I disagree, Laura. I don't think that necessarily you want to, you know, make a school committee, educators and parents, that you want to have an engagement of the broader community where, you know, they have skin in the game and they care about education, about, you know, I mean, I don't see that distinction as being important. Really, I mean, yes, you want to have some subject matter knowledge. I went in, I had no subject matter knowledge, and fortunately, you know, Dylan and Bannon, you know, educated me. But I just really don't, I'm uncomfortable with that distinction. I think that that's the point of having a school committee, is to have participation from the broader. I mean, nothing disappointed me more than coming into a school committee meeting where it was an empty room other than the committee and the educators and maybe one student. Those were the worst meetings of my experience. So, I mean, I just don't agree. Okay.
Peter Taylor?
Yeah, I think my comment nicely follows Andy's, because I think he's, in my point of view, helping to make the argument for at-large representation, because if you do have in the smaller towns more than one person who hold those qualities and convictions around serving on the committee, that there is more than one that is possible for that particular community to put forward too. I also want to, as making that comment, reinforce a point that we've made before, is that we're really trying to form a regional profile here where representatives are looking at the whole district and not their communities or the two districts that once, you know, were in place to represent these communities. But I think the at-large representation allows, especially the smaller communities, to yield more than one committed resident who wants to serve on the committee.
Okay, Bonnie and then Don, and then we're going to move on to the next topic on the regional agreement.
Well, I really hope that Peter Taylor is right. My concern is, again, I will just say, it doesn't matter whether it's a teacher or an ophthalmologist. We're looking at how do we get people who will want to go across this now very, very large district. And my fear is, especially the way, you know, we can't fill, look at what do we have, 3 or 4 across our 8 towns where it's going to be write-ins. My concern remains that we're turning this into what will become very much political. And I guess we'll have to deal with it.
Yeah. Question whether it's not political already. I think I said one more, but I see Patrick and Don have their hands up, but let's please try not to repeat what's already been said. Go ahead, Patrick.
We're not going to go with 3A prime. I think we should go with the 12-person board and give Great Barrington an extra seat. I think it's a tough sell if a majority of the seats are going to the community with a minority of the kids. I think the evenly split board, I think I could live with, but I would encourage folks to just recognize that especially given the proposed capital and operational financial structure, and one of the key responsibilities of this board is the budget, that there's going to be a whole lot more comfort from the Berkshire Hills side, knowing that we at least have an even number of seats in the table. Thank you.
Okay. So 3A triple prime.
The problem is, by the way, a political one. The problem is that the towns have very disproportionate populations. And if you want to make this political, then add 2 people at large. And what you will find is that year after year, those 2 people come from Great Barrington, simply because of the larger voting population in that town. And if you want to avoid that, 3A avoids that by setting how many will be from each town.
Okay, but how does 3A address the concern that Patrick just raised? Which is that, and it's an issue that Jane raised at our last meeting, which is that the 3 towns that have 2/3 of the student population have 6 members. And I'm sorry, the 3 towns that have 2/3 of the population have 5 members, and the 5 towns that have 1/3 of the population have 6.
And the answer to that is that we want these people to not be thinking of themselves as coming from a particular town.
Well, then why doesn't that same thought apply to and 2 extra at-large seats, or Patrick's proposal, which is an extra one from the 3 towns?
Because when you consider the populations and the fact that nobody really runs a campaign for membership in the school board, you're going to end up with the 2 quote at-large generally being elected by the largest town, in this case, Great Barrington.
John Silver?
So in the interest of throwing in some new ideas, first of all, when votes go to the towns are voting more on their ability to pay than they are on strictly educational quality. Because if we were going to go on strictly educational quality, the budgets would be quite high. So when we're talking about school committee votes, we're talking about a vote to send a budget forward to the towns at the end of the day. And if that budget is by a simple majority or by a 2/3 majority, it makes a big difference. So before I go on, I want to ask that question.
The question being?
Are budgets going to be sent to the towns on a simple majority of the school committee or on a 2/3 vote?
By statute, it has to be 2/3.
Okay, so that changes. So already the idea of talking about a simple majority is irrelevant because it's got to be a 2/3 vote.
For budgets.
That's what we're sending to the towns. And the other thing I want to say is that the school committee is only recommending. School committee doesn't vote on the budget, they recommend the budget. The towns vote on the budget. So the next question is, how many towns does it require to pass a budget? Because that matters more than how many school committee members there are. Do we have an answer to that?
I believe it's the same. Am I right, Peter?
It's interesting. I need to reread that part of the agreement. What's the case now is in Berkshire Hills, 2 of the 3 moves the budget forward. But I don't actually know.
Okay, let's.
It's 4 of 5 in Southern.
Yeah, I believe it has to be 2/3, right, Beth? Isn't that statutory?
I think it's 2/3.
Yeah.
So in 10 towns, the vote is going to have to be 7 to 3.
8 towns.
Right, 8 towns. What's the 2/3 minimum?
5.
I'm not doing the math. I haven't had dinner either.
But well, it's 5 and change, so I think it has
It's
to
6.
be 6, right?
Okay, so now we're talking about 6 towns having to approve a budget. That means that a town with only a single school committee member, right? You need just a few of those towns can kill a budget. So I think my point here is that we're arguing about the wrong thing because it's not really in our hands. It's in the hands of the towns to decide. So My question is, do we want 11 members or 13 members to function as well as we can? I think that's the real question. And I don't know the answer to that. I just wanted to point out that let's not give ourselves too much power here. It's the towns that are going to be voting by a 2/3 majority on a budget.
And just so I'm clear, that argues in favor or against which of the proposals that are on the table?
Right, so
your
that was the
mind.
last thing I said, which is that it's just really annoying to hear, which is that it doesn't really matter. All that matters is, can 11 people function better than 13? And I think the second point, which people have made, is can you get 13 qualified people? So my personal opinion, after talking about these other issues and the fact that we only have a limited amount of decision-making capacity as a recommending board or committee, is that 11 is the safer bet for getting a good school committee together with people who are willing to go.
Okay. So you're still on 3A as number 1.
I am, because I think the issue of the at-large, I think Don is correct. There's not going to be an at-large, 2 at-large people being voted in. There are 2 or 3 towns that are going to have a vast majority of those votes. And I just don't see, you're not going to get the same kind of vote for the at-large voter nominees. You're just not. But that's not really my point. My point is that if we can function best at 11, that's what we should do as a.
Okay, I see some new hands, Nadine and Deb.
I feel that 11 is a good number. And if it makes any difference, you could move 1 member from Sheffield's 2 and give it to Great Barrington. We'd still be working with 11, and then we would have the equal number of votes between the 3 towns and the 5 towns. Not that I necessarily think that we should still be talking about 2 separate districts, but I do see some value in having there be some equality if that's going to make the process easier moving forward. But I think a 13-member board is a lot of people to manage. I think that, I mean, just look at this board. We're taking forever to talk about something that was to take a temperature. It wasn't even a real vote. So, you know, it just takes so much time to get the opinions of 11 people, let alone 13 people. You know, it's just, the meetings are already, school committee meetings are already painfully long for anybody to sit through, and God bless the people who run for it, because it's in my mind, an extraordinary commitment of time.
Well, Nadine, you get an A+ for thinking about the needs of a town other than yours with that suggestion. I mean, I really applaud you for that. I think that's the kind of thinking we all need to do to get to an agreement, is putting ourselves in the position and looking at the perspectives of people outside our town. So I really appreciate your putting that on the table. And in terms of the time it's taken us to talk through this issue, I think it's worth it. I think it's really important. I think it is something, as Patrick said, that people will have an emotional reaction to. How many people from my town are going to be on the school committee? So I think it's something we have to talk through carefully and consider all different points of view. Deb?
There are 3 things I want to say. One is I'm with Nadine. I'm tired of talking about how many votes the 3 towns get versus how many votes the 5 towns get, because we're talking about an 8-town district. it's no longer district versus district, it's one district. So I think that division doesn't do much for me. I'm not convinced that the difference between 11 and 13 in terms of deliberation is that big, but that can go either way. But the thing that really strikes me is people keep talking about the at-large members will be elected from Great Barrington. We may not get volunteers from Great Barrington. I mean, to me, that's what the appeal of the at-large is, that there might be someone from New Marlborough or Alford or Stockbridge who there may be more people from one of those towns than there are seats, while Great Barrington may be struggling to fill the seats that it's got with people who are running. So the at-large positions basically say, doesn't matter what town you live in, if someone's already running from it, you still can put your hat into the ring and you have to appeal. You still, like everyone else, have to appeal to the voters from, you have to appeal to the voters from Great Barrington because there are more of them, but you don't have to live in Great Barrington in order to do that. So that's my reason for supporting the at-large positions, is that sometimes you have more interested people in one town than another. And it would be nice to tap that talent. So that's my thought.
Okay. Jane? Jane, you've been called on. Okay, Patrick and then John. Patrick?
No, I think I'm sorry, my hand was supposed to be down.
Okay, John?
I just want to reply to, so here's an old saying that I probably made up, which is don't make a rule for an exception. And although it may be true that every once in a while, two potential members from a small town will put their name in the hat, statistically speaking, just as Great Barrington has more votes, Great Barrington has more potential nominees. If we make it a rule that the exception can take place, it will still take place rarely, statistically speaking. So I agree with the sentiment, but I don't think it will happen that way for the vast majority of the time.
Okay, so we've been talking about this issue for about an hour now. Has anyone changed their minds on their votes? Or is everyone still where they were originally? Does anyone want to rethink their vote? I haven't voted yet, by the way. No change minds?
Lucy, I think, I think listening to everybody that 3A might be more applicable than 3A prime, double prime.
Okay, so you want to make 3A your number one.
Yeah, and listening to everybody's arguments, it just seems to be making a little more sense now that we've had this time to discuss it.
Okay. All right, so 3A has 15 ones and twos. 3A double prime has 16 ones and twos. So that's where we are. And I think we need some further discussion. We'll pick it up again at our next meeting, but I really thank everyone for the thoughtful discussion. It's an important issue, and I'm glad we got all these ideas on the table, and maybe next time we're going to have some more to vote on, because we have Patrick's 12-person proposal. And then we have Nadine's variation on 3A, which is keep it at 11, but move one of Sheffield's over to Great Barrington. So food for thought.
Lucy, are you willing to share where you stand right now?
Yeah, I am. I actually like the 13, the 3A double prime. That would be my number 1 vote. And the 3A 11 would be my number 2. Okay, so next meetings, we sent out some polls. We have 4 meeting dates on whole, November 9th, November 16th, November 28th, and December 14th. One of those first 2 November meetings will be our facilitated discussion. Laura Rodriguez asked, appropriately, I thought, whether, notwithstanding the fact that she will be off the school committee and therefore the planning board officially, and Jane will be, and who else, who from Berkshire Hills is going off school committee and would be therefore dropping off our planning board?
I am.
Sean?
Yep.
Okay, and who, anybody
Molly.
else?
Molly.
Molly. So we
And
have 4.
Danelle from Southern.
Danelle is off as well?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 board members who have put in a lot of work and have a lot of knowledge and a lot to contribute, who will be moving off our planning board. And so the question Laura asked was whether for the facilitated discussion, which was the product of Laura's motion, whether those 5 could nevertheless be invited to participate in that facilitated discussion.
I
And
move that they be allowed to participate.
Second.
thank you. I agree with that sentiment. Is there anyone who would like to speak against that? Has a different point of view? Okay, so we'll take another look at the poll to see which out of those 2 dates, the 9th and the 16th, have the most people saying yes, in particular from that group. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can with a firmed update for that facilitated discussion. The new school committee members, I don't know when they will be sworn in. I don't know that they will be sworn in by the 9th.
They won't be.
I don't think it's essential that they be part of that facilitated discussion, given that it really is looking back at the dynamics of our discussion to date and less about the kinds of things we discussed today on the regional school district agreement, for example. So I think it may make sense to have the facilitated discussion on the 9th, assuming that that date works for the 5 who are moving off. So we'll take a look at the doodle poll responses on that. When will they be sworn in by, Beth and Peter? Do you know?
I'm thinking it won't be before, we actually moved our school committee to the 17th because it probably won't be ready until, that early in that next week at the latest.
That's what our school committee is too. They, in the case of our 3 towns, not only do they have to be sworn in, but where there are multiple people, the moderator has to appoint them. So we need to afford a little time for that as well.
Okay, so is everyone
Addition-
confident that by the 17th, you're gonna have them sworn in and ready to go?
I think-
Lucy, I don't know if we have any real contested ones, but you have to wait for the overseas ballots to come in before the clerk is willing to finalize the vote and then swear us in.
Okay. So historically, how long does that take?
I
There
think
is a
we'll be
deadline.
fine for this by the 17th for the school committee. I don't know that the moderator will appoint to the board by then. I don't know. I mean, right? I mean, I don't know that that'll happen at the same time. I think we'd reorganize on the 17th and then people would put in their desire to be on the board. I think that'll be a little longer.
Okay.
I think Beth's got
Well-
a good point there, Lucy, is that we're assuming that new people on the school committee will want to be on this board. And although it's a fun board to be on, I can't guarantee that. So for instance, in Stockbridge, we have what, 2 members. It may be another member from Stockbridge wants to be on, or we may have a problem getting a member from Stockbridge. I mean, you just don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll do the best that we can, but I think what it's looking like to me is that the next board meeting for talking about the regional school district agreement is likely going to be on the 29th of November. Because by then, those new school committee members who want to be on the planning board and are appointed by the moderator should have been appointed by the moderator by then, the 29th. Jane?
I just wanted to say, I do think it's important for the new members to be in on the facilitated discussion. That's just my opinion. I don't know whether that makes sense to other people. Thank you.
Okay. Don?
I just want to say that there are basically 2 issues that are difficult in coming to an agreement. And tonight, the discussion was well worthwhile and worth an hour, and it's worth some more to decide the critical issue of the membership of the board. The other main issue, which we're not ready to discuss because the Finance Committee hasn't even dealt with it, is apportionment of the burden of paying for the schools, both the capital and the operating. Those are really the 3 issues that are difficult. All the other issues in the draft agreement, I think, are minor. So I think tonight's discussion was extremely useful and very worthwhile and worth the time.
Thanks, Don. I do want to defend the finance subcommittee. They are wrestling with the apportionment issue. I haven't finished that analysis, but they certainly are well into that discussion. All right. Anything else?
You have to take a vote on the motion Don made and I seconded. Right?
What was the motion?
The motion was to have those 5 people.
Oh, yeah. I thought because there was no one speaking against that, we didn't really have to go through the formality of that, but we will. All right, all in favor, Charlie,
Yes.
George. George is gone. Danelle? Danelle is gone. Tom Burkle?
Aye.
Thank you. Deb?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Susan is not here.
Yes.
Bonnie? Oh,
I'm
Susan,
here.
you're there. Okay, thank you. Bonnie?
Yes.
Nadine?
Yes.
Colin's not here. Patrick's a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Andy?
Aye.
Aye, and Lucy's an aye. Okay, thank you for that. So I want to see if we've got any public comments before we break. Roger's hand is up, Joan's hand is up. So can you promote both of them, Christine?
Yes, doing that right now.
Thank you.
Okay, all set.
All right, Roger. Nice to see you. Do we get to actually see you?
I don't know. I'm sitting in front of my computer, so, I've done my part.
All right. We don't see your face, but we hear your
Okay, here we
calm,
go. Here we
we
go.
hear your calm, reasonable voice.
Well, I'm going to say something that might be considered unreasonable.
Okay.
I listened to the long discussion about 11 or 13 and the mixture of 11 plus 2 at large. And a lot of the discussion centered around what I'll term as equity. Are the towns fairly representative? Are people on the board representing the whole board, the whole new district, or just their towns? And so I would toss out as something for the board to consider is, if you're truly trying to strive for equity and having the members represent the whole district, why not make the new school board 8 towns, 8 members? And if you want it large, add the large to the 8. And that's my contribution for this evening.
Oh boy, I need to write that down. Yet another possibility. 8 towns, 1 member from each, and 2 at large. Is that it?
That's it.
So a 10-member board.
And I think the most important part of my thought is each town, 8 towns, 8 board members. If there's concerns about who's getting the most votes or any of that, that goes away with 1 per.
Food for thought. Okay. Joan?
Yes, thanks. I think I'm jumping the gun, but with respect to the information that was put out with regards to the budgets and the changes in the assessments that, as you said, the finance committee is still working on, I'm wondering if the finance committee can actually approach some of, or make themselves available, or get like people from the towns involved. How can we participate more? Can we get a little more heads up? Because I know this is going to be a huge change for many towns. And the concept that I guess Roger alluded to is that, you want to go from thinking about yourself as a town to part of a bigger process when, some of us have a very small population of students. So I'm just wondering, can you, will that committee please reach out to some of the, or all certainly, but I think our finance committee would love to be involved, understanding the complicated calculations and the discussion. The rich discussion will provide us with a better understanding of what the recommendation means. And I think inform our recommendations to our own towns. So
Yeah,
if we could do that,
definitely.
that would be
So,
great.
so Julie Hannum is a representative from Sheffield, who's not on the planning board, but who is participating actively in not only those finance subcommittee discussions, but all of our discussions about this new draft regional school agreement. And certainly, Joan, if you were interested in joining those discussions in that same way, being an active participant in those discussions, you would be most welcome, I would think. Nadine, maybe I'm speaking out of line, but certainly we do welcome engagement from finance committee members from the 8-member towns and others who really want to dig in to participate in all of these discussions and meetings.
I agree fully, Lucy. The more heads that are listening and asking questions, I think we can only get stronger that way.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure. Don and then John, and then we'll wrap up.
Night. My hand was up by accident.
Okay, John?
I just want a clarification as someone who chairs the subcommittee. I'm assuming that the subcommittee meetings are all open to the public. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that we encourage the public to speak and participate at those meetings?
Yeah, we do, but we generally have the public speaking at the end during the public comment period. So the people who are actually promoted onto the panel are either planning board members or people, in the case of Julie and perhaps Joan, who have said they want to participate on a regular basis in these discussions about the regional school district agreement. And so they get promoted at the outset and are called upon during the course of the meeting. So
Okay,
that's the
they're not-
difference.
So they're another category between
Yes,
committee
they're a
members
different
and
category. Yep,
the public. Okay, thanks.
yep. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Steve, what is the shortcut you do for closing out meetings without having to take a vote?
I just say by unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
All right, can I say that? Can I start
Why
saying
not? No
that?
one's ever challenged me.
Yes, please.
All right,
Well,
by
I don't,
unanimous,
wait, Lucy, this is the last meeting that some of us are gonna be at. There's been no acknowledgement of the hard work of these school committee members who are now leaving. Other elected officials who are no longer serving in their positions are still on this board. So I wanted to personally thank all of the school committee members who I know have been working double time, seeing as we won't be together again in this regard. Thank you.
well, I thought we were gonna be together again at our next facilitated discussion. So I was planning to give those thanks, but at the November meeting, when I hope everyone is gonna be there, whether you're still officially on the board or not. But yes, thanks to everybody on this board for showing up at every meeting and participating in this initiative. All right,
thank
what
you.
was, what do I say again, Steve?
I say by unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
By unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Good
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Well
Good job,
done.
everybody.
Nighty night.